Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about incompetence and seniors, so let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how do I deal with a incompetent senior as a junior developer? That is really bad. So the first thing I'm going to say here is that you should always, especially if you are inexperienced or a junior or something like that, consider the possibility that it is you who lack the perspective of the senior, because I have seen this many times where some person who has a fraction of the skills and knowledge of a real senior comes in and says, hey, you know what, we should do this and we should do that, and this is bad, we should do this instead. And the seniors, they usually don't say much. Like, they might just say, no, oh well, no, that's going to be a lot of work. They sound like they're kind of boring and a stick in the mud and so forth. And sometimes this is true, but quite a lot of times they simply put these ideas down because the amount of investment that would have to happen in order to deliver on all of these things that the junior wants is too great. They know that the company will never go for it. They will not get a buy-in. And if they don't get a buy-in, and since they have a backlog that is massive and a lot of deadlines to meet today, they know that all these ideas are nice and everybody who comes in the door has the same idea. It's just that when they realize that the company doesn't prioritize the work, nothing's going to happen. So that's the first thing you need to consider. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that you are correct. You have identified, or you're under the thumb of a senior that is truly incompetent. Now, as a junior, you really only have two situations here. Like, this is the thing that we need to determine depending on what your strategy is going to be. So you have in one scenario, the company is aware of that this senior is a problem, and in the other scenario they are unaware. And depending on where you find yourself, it's going to make a world of difference. If they are aware of that the senior is a bit of a special case or a problem or a pain point for quite a lot of other developers, you can actually leverage that to your benefit. Because if you start highlighting that the development process is being impacted by this person, you never ever point fingers. You never say that, oh, this person is bad at what they do, or this person is fucking up all the time. You don't do that, because what you're going to do if you do something like that is that you're going to be perceived as a you're not going to be perceived as a team player. You're going to be seen as a petty person who stabs people in the back, and you don't want that. You want to maintain your own security and your own maturity, if you will, and let people kind of just make their own assumptions about the situation, right? Because they're going to come to the same conclusion most of the time that you want them to come to. It's just that you don't have to be that overt and point at people. So simply highlight the delays and issues and so forth that is just happening within the workplace, and then try to push your own ideas. Because what's going to happen is that in the beginning, the senior might have the influence to actually stop you from doing what it is that you want to do. But as you prove that you actually have good ideas and that you deliver and that you're actually performing at a pretty decent level, your coworkers and your managers are going to start to notice that, hey, you actually are bringing a sort of like in relation to your skill level, or to your expected skill level, you're actually performing pretty well, and that is going to build trust. And that is influence that you are gaining and the senior is losing. And before you know it, that senior can complain as much as he or she wants, but nobody's going to hear them out, because they know that you have already proven that you kind of know how to do this, and things are turning out well, and you just get to do your thing. And although you may have to deal with that senior not being happy about what you're doing, they can't really stop you. And that is the best thing that you can achieve. I mean, you can, of course, force things, but if they have the influence, if you don't have any type of credibility within that organization, which is usually the way it starts out, you might find it very tricky to get away from under the thumb of this senior. So that's why it can be very useful if you're in that scenario where people actually know that this is a problem type of person, because then, like, they are basically they are tying their own noose. That is what they're doing. The other way this can play out is if this person is pretty good, is perceived to be just another developer. They don't have a reputation of being incompetent or being an issue type of person in any fashion. This is a very bad situation for you as a junior, because now it's basically your word as the newcomer and the inexperienced person against that of a senior, someone who's most likely been working in that company for a little bit longer or and has a perceived higher value and even a higher salary, which makes the whole thing much more politically uncomfortable. Because if you admit that this was a bad hire, then whoever did that hiring, it becomes a bad situation for everybody involved, even your boss. In that scenario, the best thing you can do is to leverage your social skills, I would say. And this, of course, depends on you having strong social skills. But what you have to do is pretty much to get in good with this senior. You try to befriend them, try to get as close to them as possible, and start having conversations about code. Just sit and talk to them. Share ideas about how you're thinking about code, and then listen to how they think about code and really hear them out. Because if you build that intimate relationship where they actually feel like maybe they're not going to agree with you on everything, but if you can get them to a point where they're at least open to having that dialogue with you, and you build this strong relationship, they will actually say yes when you want to try things out, or they might say, okay, I wouldn't probably have done it this way, but they will let you do it because you have a good relationship. And that is now you achieving pretty much the same goal as in the first case. It's just that you're achieving it in a different fashion. You just want them to allow you to work on your own ideas. And then of course you have to deliver, because if you're getting that lead, like if you're getting some slack, and you can actually add a few of the things that you want to add in or do the things that you want, right? Then these things have to measure up, because then otherwise if they don't measure up and you're actually the one who's fucking everything up, then you're going to lose all of that slack that you're gaining through these social maneuvers that you're doing, right? And lastly, you might have this idea that the subscriber and I was kind of talking about, that, okay, you might want to get rid of this person. How do you do that? That is extremely hard. I would say for you as a junior, it's almost impossible to get somebody fired. I'm just going to state it that right now. If you want to go and risk it and point out somebody in your company and say that they should get fired, that's on you, but that is a massive risk, a really big risk. Odds are that it won't even happen because of, as what I said, firing somebody is very uncomfortable politically and financially for the company. They don't want to fire people if they can avoid it. They will if you bend their arm, but there has to be a fairly strong ground. There has to be a very good reason. Let's just call it that, right? So what you can do, what usually you do in order to make this happen, to highlight such an individual, is that you need to isolate them as much as humanly possible. And the reason why you want to isolate them within the workplace is not necessarily socially, but work-related, in a work-related fashion, is because if you put an incompetent person who's left to their own devices, will very quickly show that they are incompetent. It's easy to hide as an incompetent developer in a group of other developers because you're just another one of them working and everybody's involved, so it's hard to tell who's the one who's being incompetent. But if you isolate them and they're always slower, or like there are bugs with everything, all the projects that they work on, or like the experience interacting with them is poor and so forth, it's going to start to show very quickly even to your managers and your other stakeholders that this person is a bit of a problem. And they might even leave the company if they get to be isolated enough, which is another way of getting rid of somebody, which is also very common. But the problem for you as a junior is that you don't have the power to do much in this area, because the perfect thing for you would have been if you could allocate them to tasks, like different tasks within the project that are in the peripheral places, pretty much the same sort of thing that you would have thought about doing if you were placing a junior somewhere within the workforce. You want to put them as far away as possible from critical code so that they are isolated in a fashion where they can't do much harm at the very least. You as the junior though, you don't have that influence. If you were a tech lead or a team lead or a manager or something like that, then you have that power. And this is something that the managers who are very tactical with their resources will do. So for you, all you can really do is to highlight the issues. So basically what I want you to take away from this is that there's three ways to look at this. If the company is aware of that the senior is an issue, use that to your benefit. Prove that you are competent, prove that your ideas are good, and highlight issues, and they will lose their power over you, and you will be, before you know it, you will be autonomous and you can pretty much do whatever you want. Second thing is, if they are unaware and they don't understand that this person is incompetent, the best thing for you is to try to build a good relationship with this individual so that they will allow you to do the things that you want to do, and then you do the same thing until when you get enough credibility within the office space, they will allow you to pretty much do whatever you want, but you need to earn it. Lastly, getting somebody fired is all but impossible for you as a junior. You basically can only highlight issues and try your best to make sure that that person is working on things that are non-critical, but you don't have a lot of power as the junior. So be very careful when you're doing this sort of stuff. And if push comes to shove, you remember that you always have the option of quitting your job and finding somewhere else to work. Have a great day.